All right. Let's begin. So, hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to our July webinar of our ITOM Academy. We're really excited to be here and dive deep into the endpoint and server discovery with Agent Client Collector for Visibility. This webinar today is part of our ITOM Academy series that happens every month. This is also part of the Live on ServiceNow webinar series. If you haven't done so before, please scan this QR code to subscribe to the Live on ServiceNow series, and then you can also select to subscribe to the ITOM Academy specifically so that you can benefit from these webinars where our team is joining to make sure that you achieve value faster with our solutions. The link will be also shared in the chat. Thank you so much, Jan, for that. Now, let's begin with some housekeeping items. So first, let's make sure that everyone's line is muted. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions throughout the session. We have a fantastic crew backstage that will be answering all your questions. So thank you so much, Jen, Derek, Richard, and Doug for this help with the questions. Please stay engaged with us in the polls. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded and will be shared on the ServiceNow community forum after the session, along with the slides. And after the session ends, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey, and we really appreciate all of your feedback. So let's move on to the intros. So first, my name is Gabi Aguirre. I'm an outbound product manager intern this summer in the ITOM team. This is my first webinar, so I'm really happy to be here today speaking to you. And now I would let our awesome speakers introduce themselves. So Ryan, if you can start.
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Gabby. My name is Ryan Zulli. I've been at ServiceNow for just about 13 years, heavily experienced in all of our ITOM products. Today, coming to you with ACC. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Derek Hitzman. I am an outbound product manager on the ITOM team. I am a peer of Gabby's.
Hey, hello everyone. Sakshi Tiwari here. I am the inbound product manager under ITOM View. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all our speakers and our fantastic crew backstage as well. So our agenda for today, we have introductions, we have ACC-V overview and what's new. We're going to show you some outcomes, the demo, and then we moved into the Q&A. So let's begin with the CMDB. Your organization's data foundation is the fuel for AI and workflow success across your different environments, either on cloud, on-premise, etc. We're really seeing that the most successful CMDBs have business context. So that is that they can easily relate each of their CIs to their impact on the business. Having better visibility on the state of your technology and really understanding the business impacts is key to enable all the outcomes that we can see on this slide. And Sakshi will touch on this more on the following slides. This next slide also shows how ServiceNow automates the CMDB population by combining not only native and traditional discovery, but also your existing tools. On the left, we have ServiceNow Visibility that uses built-in capabilities to discover data from sources like cloud, endpoint, containers, and more. And on the right, Service Graph connectors enrich the CMDB by pulling data from tools you already use, like the ones that you're seeing here. And at the center is a CMDB, which is your single system of record with one data model, one platform, and architecture that is powering all of the automated insight. Now, let's move on with our first poll of our session. So here, we would love to understand what is your level of maturity with the Agent Client Collector for visibility. So you can choose between, we have deployed for server visibility, we have deployed it for end user devices visibility, both of the above, or we haven't deployed it yet. Please take the next 10-20 seconds to fill up that poll. Awesome. Thank you so much for the engagement on the poll. This really helped us understand what your level of maturity is. And now I will hand it to Sakshi to continue talking about ACC-V.
Yeah, thank you, Gabby. So let us start with a quick look at the challenges that organizations face with agentless discovery, a method that's long been popular but not without its limits. When we talk about agentless discovery, it sounds great in theory, no installations, quick setup, but there are roadblocks, especially when it comes to end user computing and server environments. For end user devices, as you can see on the screen, there are issues due to lack of credentials, offline devices that simply don't respond. Plus, it increases your dependency on the VPNs, which aren't always active. On the server side, the challenges are deeper. Lack of OS level credentials, zero trust networks that block traditional access, and complexity around discovering domain controllers. So all of these means that relying solely on agentless discovery can leave some blind spots in your visibility strategy. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this brings us to Agent Client Collector for Visibility, which is designed to bridge these visibility gates with the agent-based approach. Now, what's unique about ACC-V is its flexibility. It supports both mid-based as well as midless architecture, and it works across Windows, macOS, and Linux endpoints and servers. So on the left, you can see the midless architecture where ACC-V directly sends data to ServiceNow instance using the ITOM Cloud Services, ICS, where no mid server is required. So you essentially connect to the ITOM gateways, which are specific for the regions, and there's no involvement of mid here. While on the right, we see the traditional mid-based approach, which is still fully supported, especially in server-heavy environments where direct cloud communication may not be allowed. So this dual architecture gives organizations the freedom to deploy based on their security posture or infrastructure. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so now moving on to the outcomes. With ACC-V, you are not just collecting data, but you are also powering your outcomes across IT. So let's break it down. Endpoint and server visibility becomes seamless even for offline or off-network devices. Then you can also get the business impact analysis using service mapping directly through the data that is collected by the agent. ITAM use cases. So it gains accurate data for cost optimization, knowing what's out there, what is in use and what isn't. So which software you are basically consuming, what is the license, all of that SAM outcomes. And then from SecOps point of view, file-based discovery now enables you to detect vulnerabilities even on the systems that were previously hard to reach. So in short, ACC-V turns a lightweight agent into a enabler across your IT workflows. Next slide, please. Yeah. So coming to the recent innovations, let me take you through the exciting innovations that make ACC-V even more powerful and easier to use. We are focused on solving three core challenges, I would say. That is visibility on endpoint devices for ITAM and SecOps use cases, even if they're rarely connected. Then simplifying the architecture so you're not bogged down by the complexity. That is the midless environment for you. And enabling the discovery of softwares which are not registered with OS, which might be a blind spot in many organizations. For end user devices, file-based discovery, which can detect your unmanaged softwares as well, software usage metering, helping you optimize licensing and reduce costs. And of course, the continuous evolution of our midless ACC-V for seamless deployments. The only caveat right now with midless is pattern execution is not yet supported in the midless environment. So there you have to use the mid-based approach pretty much. For servers, we have enabled pattern execution through agent, as I said, file-based discovery to capture what is really running, and now ML-powered service mapping through ACC-V data, which is a huge value add for operation teams. So all of this is geared towards giving you a full stack visibility without heavy lifting. Yeah. So to sum it up, I would say ServiceNow's ACC-V is not just another discovery tool, but it is a foundation for your IT operations across your operations, I would say, within your org. Yeah. With this, I would like to hand over to Derek to take us further.
I think, Derek, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Gabby, is there one more poll that we need to go through before I jump into the demo?
Let's see. Yes. So let's go on to the second poll, and then Derek will cover the demo. So for our second poll today, thank you also, Sakshi, so much for walking us through your slides. So for all of our attendees here, we would love to know for which use cases are you currently using, or will you be using the agent client collector for visibility? So would it be for SAM use cases, for SecOps use cases, ML-based service mapping, ITSM, AIOps use cases, or enterprise architecture? So you can see the poll on your screen, and please take about 10 seconds to answer that. Thank you so much for all of your engagement.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and grab the screen share here.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek.
I'm going to share my desktop. And just a quick validation that everybody can see the instance. Am I sharing the right screen? Or let's try this again. Desktop 2. Okay. Everybody can see my instance? Okay, I got some thumbs up. All right, so one of the questions that I wanted to answer live, and this really kind of goes in with the first part of the demo flow, is the required applications, right? So one of the questions, and I apologize, I can't remember who answered it, but what were the Linux distributions that were supported in here? So what I've done is I've come into System Applications All, and I just did a quick search for Agent Client Collector. So, you know, I got to close that. You see here, when we look at some of the required applications, it's the Agent Client Collector for visibility, and that's really the focus of this particular webinar, is focusing on the visibility use cases for Agent Client Collector. So that's one of the applications that will be installed, and then this is a dependent, the framework, and I believe it's in the framework. If I open it up, it shows you which operating systems that we support. So from a Linux perspective, Red Hat 7, 8, and 9, CentOS 8, 9, SLES 12, 15, Ubuntu 18 to 24, Debian 9 to 11, and then AWS, Amazon Linux 2 AMIs. And then you can also see from a Windows perspective, right, 12 to 22, and then enterprise and professional enterprise for 10 and 11, and then Mac OS Catalina to Sequoia, and then for the ARM architecture, Monterey to Sequoia. So that's where you can see what operating systems that we support, and you can see, other system requirements that are defined there as well, and links to meaningful documentation and deployment details. So yeah, when we think about, the getting Agent Client Collector installed in your environment, the visibility, content, and then the framework are needed. And then if you're looking to implement a midless implementation of that, you will need to install the ITOM Cloud Services Core application as well, right? So those are the main applications that you would need to install in your instance to get it working. And these are, these are decoupled from the family releases. So if you don't already have those installed in your instance, you would need to go to the store.servicenow.com and register the instances where you want to install those in. And then, one more thing to talk about instance readiness. You know, ServiceNow used F5 for accessing the instance, and what we're doing now is we're using ADC. I think it's like application device connectivity, or I can't remember what the acronym stands for exactly, but it's a different technology from the F5 load balancers, and you can ensure that your instance is ready to support the midless configuration through the ITOM cloud service by just pasting in this context ADC v2 / supports TLS. If you get a true there, you can tell that your instance is ready to support that midless configuration. So let's transition now over and let's talk about deployment, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and go to Agent Client Collector and go to the deployment. Now, if you're using a web server, right, you'll need to generate a web server API key. And I've fielded questions is, can we have different web keys, and can we do, let's say one web key for desktop and another web key for connecting servers. You can definitely do that. You can have any number of web keys. Just think about the challenges of managing those different web keys, right? Another thing is we also, besides basic and API key, is we also support MTLS. And if you're deploying ACC in a production environment, probably want to leverage MTLS to be more secure, right? Another thing to talk about is if you're deploying a midless configuration, you will need a registration key, right? And this registration key helps define, the topic that ACC is going to publish the payloads into the ITOM cloud services infrastructure, and then also, what the instance is going to, subscribe to that topic to pick up those payloads so they can be processed by the IRE and ultimately update the CMDB, right? So you will need either a registration key or an API key, depending on which way you're going to connect the ACC. And then, from a download perspective, right? So you can come here and, based off of the version, right? That will be the version that's available for downloads here. And then, whether, you choose multiple keys here, you can update which key you want to do. But here, the Windows download, you can either get a URL or the link, or the URL link or the actual downloading the package, right? And that's for Windows, Mac OS. And when you think about Mac OS, is it an Intel chip or a Silicon chip? You just want to make sure that you do that. And then, for the different Linux distributions, there are, links or download files for those different flavored distributions. And then, if you're, just testing this out and you want to do a single line installer, right? We have those here, and, you can copy that single line installer. And then what happens is, we pull out the key, and then the web hook for talking via the mid, and then the instance to download through the single line installer for mid connections. And then From a Windows perspective, for the midless or without a mid connection, you copy that, and we already include, the only thing that you would need to update here is the MSI file path, all of the details, the gateway. So we have 3 different gateways, and those gateways are, AMS, EMEA, and then I believe it's APJ. So that will auto-populate based off of the region where your instance is provisioned. And then, of course, we pull out the API key in the ServiceNow instance. So that will facilitate deploying. Now, one of the things to think about is if you are using a mass deployment tool, whether it's Jamf or, ME, CM or MEMC, whatever the application is, or the acronym is for the SCCM, right? You'll need to think about considerations that are specific to those mass deployment platforms, and the single line installer may not work there. Just wanted to call that out. I know that, that sometimes that there's questions about that, right? So after you validated that your instance you've got the installed applications, and you validated I am going to use midless, and I am ready from a midless perspective. I've downloaded the software. I've got the software deployed. One of the things you want to think about is, you want to make sure that, you go into the discovery configuration console, and you configure Unix and Windows. If you want to discover, software on those, you want to make sure that those are enabled. And then if there's any type of excludes filters you want to include in that. And then if you are going to roll out file-based discovery, so file-based discovery came out Q1 release, I believe it was, of this year. So prior to ACC supporting it, we supported it through agentless, but now we do support it for agent client collector as well. And then you'll want to come in and make sure that if you haven't already done this, you want to identify what folders that you want to scan for file-based discovery. And also you want to identify which file extensions that you want to pull back with file-based discovery, right? So, that's a little bit more around, instance preparation for that. So let's jump into, and, real quickly, there are policies. So I've only downloaded, the policies for visibility, since, that's my area of scope within the ITOM BU. But just wanted to call out that right now, the midless connection, if you're establishing a midless connection for, let's say, an end user compute endpoint or a server endpoint, right now the visibility policies are only supported. We will look at, supporting health in future releases of this, but as of right now, the visibility policies are the ones that are supported for ACC midless connection. So just wanted to call that out. And then when you think about these policies, they're made up of checks, and those checks are executed to pull back both hardware OS level details as well as software details. So let's jump into and let's look at our agents here. So in this particular instance, I've got quite a few agents running, probably not what you would see in your customer environments, but just for demo purposes, right? So you'll notice here, I've got the agent names, right? And I can tell the status, what version they are, and then whether they're connected to our mid or not. So where mid is empty, that is going through the ITOM cloud services. And then where you see the mid populated, that's the mid server that it is communicating. Now, you may have a situation where you have a mid server cluster. I'm just using a single mid server here, but one of the things that you want to think about is if you are clustering your mids together, you want to have a load balancer in front of that so you can distribute the traffic to those different mid servers. And I can see when it was last started, when it was last refreshed. I've got host collection data. I can see that data collection's on. I can see how many checks have been downloaded to those instances. And then here's the CI's records, and I can hyperlink into those CIs. And then, of course, I have information about those CIs within my install list. I can modify this. I can add and remove columns, similar list views that you're used to within the platform. So let's take a look at an endpoint that is an endpoint. Oh, one of the things I did want to show you, apologies there. Let me get back. One of the things I did want to show you, if I do click on this agent, right? If I look in, here, I could see, what are the checks that are downloaded to this particular agent? And then, certain things I have in the related list, I can restart. I got pause collection. I can clear the assets. So when the agent starts after initial installation, it's going to go and talk to the instance and say, hey, I'm here, give me my policies that I'm going to be executing. So if you wanted to refresh this, you could clear those assets and re-download those policies. I can request that the config file be downloaded. I can grab the logs here, similar to what you can do with a mid server. And then, I can find ECC queues for this particular agent and see how that data is being processed into the ECC queue. I can set log level, so on, and I can test checks here, right? So if you're running through some troubleshooting here, I can go ahead and set this to debug log level, and then I can test these checks and then pull down the logs and see if I need. And that will help with troubleshooting if you don't have remote access to that, right? So I can also re-kick off host collection here as well, revoke any certificates, and then also see open up the CI in the CMDB workspace. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to, from here, I see the host record here. I'm going to go ahead and open up that record just in a separate tab. And now I've got, basically CI information here. So I've captured the name. This is just a virtual desktop running in VMware. And then, if there were domain information, I would capture that. This is not in a domain, it's just in a work group. But I've got operating system details, I've got hardware details, and then I've got relationship here information. And then if I come down here, when I think about, leveraging those software asset management use cases, I've captured the installed software in here. So in this particular instance, I've got Office 365 and I've installed those locally here, right? And one of the things that we had talked about is we do support the capture of software metric usage data. So that is both the last executed date and then also an overall usage date for end user compute, right? I don't have it set up for this particular agent, but if I did, I could expose that in a related field here and tab and see that information here. But another thing that we talked about is, and I see the location where this software is installed, right? Another thing here is we're capturing installed I'm sorry, we're doing file-based discovery. So if the software is not registered with the operating system and maybe someone just unzipped it and I still need to capture that data for software asset management, compliance workflows and reclamation workflows, et cetera, right? I've got that data here. And then if you think about, use cases from a vulnerability management, like the Log4j a couple years back, right? Being able to identify those files that you want to capture, now I can see where there's, what EXEs, where they're stalled. And if the publisher publishes a version out to those file details, I've got that captured, right? So then I can, effectively understand, hey, where do I potentially have this vulnerability, and have that information within the CMDB. So that's really what CI looks like from end user compute perspective. Let's take a look at an agent that's running. Let's just go back to agents here. So let's take a look at an agent where I've got running, on a server, right? That's connected to a mid server. So, you know, I've got the same functionality here from a related links perspective. I can see what checks are here, and then I can, you know, jump in to this record. And now I can see some details here. So in this particular instance, right, this is a server software. So I've got the server details, OS level, domain. I see hardware information. This is a virtual machine, but I can see how much RAM, what type of processor information. And then, of course, I've got, you know, related items here. So one of the things is, you know, I could set this to different levels. I just for ease of demoing purposes, and really what I want to show here is, you know, the fact that I'm capturing, you know, running software and applications on this, and then creating those applications, right? And then I can see, you know, I also got some other things running on here. And similar to, you know, that end user compute, right? I've got that data down here. And, you know, one of the things that, like, when we think about an ML-based service mapping, it's reliant on running process and TCP data. So we're capturing that either with just the agent client collector, you know, OS query data, as well as pattern-based discovery as well. And that is one of the differentiations, you know, on that data center infrastructure, you know, server OS level. You know, we do support pattern execution. And, you know, as Sakshi called out in the slides earlier, pattern execution does require a mid server to execute those patterns. So we do not support pattern execution in the midless configuration. But I am capturing running process and TCP data, so I can leverage that data for ML-based service mapping. And then you'll also notice that I have software installations here, so I can see all the software installed here. File-based discovery is supported as well for server OS, so I can see that data. And then another thing that's cool is, you know, I can also expose the CMDB 360 data tab here in the related list, and I can see what are the different sources that I'm capturing this data in. And I actually disabled credentialists after I noticed that that was running. So just some things that I wanted, and then other things like I can see IPs, network adapters, storage devices, memory modules, etc. So all of that information is being captured here as well. One of the things I wanted to say, so in this particular instance for this ACC, we do have pattern execution enabled. So I am capturing, now if pattern execution wasn't enabled, we would still capture this details, but it would just be a stub CI, right? So you would just basically see that there is a SQL Server instance, but we wouldn't capture a complete CI. But in this particular instance, because we are executing pattern, we're getting the version information and port details, you know, the instance name, the version. And in this particular instance, this is an evaluation version, and that's why we didn't match on that, because we don't have that in the here. But I am capturing that, and not only am I capturing that, but I'm also capturing you know, the databases that are running on that SQL Server instance, which through non-pattern discovery, you would not get that information. So if you are thinking about, you know, running agent client collector on your server infrastructure, you know, do think about pattern execution so you can get a more complete discovery, especially when you think about those secondary discoveries that kick off, right, based off of a running process here. So
Hey, Derek, you want to show real quick the pattern log? We can show where
yep, that's where I was going next. So what I'm going to do here is just to show you that it was discovered by a pattern, and something that will help you, you know, during your troubleshooting process. You know, you know, when you look at a horizontal discovery run, you can go into the discovery log and look at the patterns and open up that pattern execution log. You can still do that for agent client collector, right? So what I did here is I've got it favored, but what it is it's in the pattern designer dropdown. It's the discovery pattern log, right? And now I can come in here and you can see, Windows Server execution. And some of these failures is I just don't have that particular agent running pattern execution here. But on this one where we did that, right? So I can actually open up the log and, I could run through it like this, but then I can get to that same view that you get through on horizontal discovery by clicking on the view log here. So now, I got all of that, I've got the identification here. And if you'll notice here, in this step, I can see that it's using the ACC connection to execute that log. And then, of course, I've got the ability to run through and check the results of each one of those steps, right? Now, one of the things that you won't see is, there isn't the capability to go into debug mode here, but you do have that capability to look at the pattern execution log and notice that it was executed by ACC and look at the commands that were, just the steps that were executed and how that, was added and captured, parsed through, and then ultimately added to the CMDB for payload processing, right?
So Derek, real quick, when it says, so right there where it says ACC execution with the agent ID of, and it starts with DE, there's been an enhancement request. So in case anybody on the call is thinking about it, we will replace that ID with the name of the agent, right? For debugging purposes, you might have 250,000, 300,000 agents in your system. And this ID is an extra step for you to copy and paste it and then go figure out which agent ran this command. We're going to eventually have that be the name, the display name instead.
Oh, it looks like, and I said that you couldn't go into debug, but it looks like you can go into debug. So I stand corrected. Okay, so from a demo perspective, that's really what I was planning on covering. Are there any questions that that need to be answered, or that maybe we want, we've got some time left for Q&A. Are there any questions that we want to maybe call out? Let me pop open the Q&A here. So I talked about the supported Linux variants and how you can find that out. Midless ACC, is Midless ACC V different than DEX? And it is, right? So, you need a DEX license to be able to run DEX. With ACC-V, we don't have the DEX checks like, checks against, running processes to see the health on it, to see battery health and things like that, right? It is really just, related to visibility use cases for ACC-V. Okay, Richard asks, can we show any examples of ACC running on a Windows Hyper-V host so we can see how it is represented on the CMDB Plus? I don't have that particular use case in this particular instance, but that is something, maybe in a future video that we could, get working in an environment and see if we can show how that supports. Another question, does file-based discovery scan the entire drive, or is it targeted to a given folder? So it is, so when we, if we come back here to answer Bill's question, so when, for both Linux and Windows, or Unix and Windows, but specifically for Agent Client Collector, I guess that's one of the things that we should call out. Agent Client Collector supports Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. We do not support Agent Client Collector installations on AIX, HPUX, Solaris, any type of Unix varieties. There are libraries that are required that aren't supported in those operating systems. But to answer Bill's question, you could say scan the whole C drive. but you don't need to. And from a performance perspective, you want to get granular. And for demo purposes, I got pretty greedy here. A lot of these are already discovered through, or actually all of these are discovered already through, normal software discovery, but just to show, in this demo instance, how we can support, file. So it is, you identify the folders that you want to scan, and then you identify the extensions. And then from a Linux perspective, you basically just identify those directories that you want to scan. Let's see, what are some other questions? We do some of the outdated version of the software installed on the system still being tracked. Google Chrome, Edge, Microsoft Teams. Multiple or older version entries are still shown. Is there a way to remove these outdated versions automatically with agent discovery? So I'm assuming you're talking about, we've done software discovery, and I'm not sure if you're saying remove this from the CMDB or remove this from the actual OS. And I'll try to answer both questions just to cover it. Agent client collector is for visibility is capturing, CI data. So it's adding data to the CMDB. If you want to remove it from, those older versions from the CMDB, then, you would want to use, data manager in the CMDB workspace to talk about, removing, absent things from discovery. Now, if you're talking about using agent client collector to actually uninstall those, at this time, that is not supported. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Let's see. I hope this presentation in Divo gives a good level of information of when we should consider ACC versus other type of discovery and use cases. Yeah, so I think we tried to represent that in the slides that, you would use, a midless configuration for devices where you need to capture CI information so you can, effectively do hardware and software asset management lifecycle and compliance operations for disconnected devices, right? And if that device can connect to a corporate VPN, or is not in the DMZ and it's in the data center, then probably the mid configuration is better, right? Let's see. I hope I answered that one. Hi, can we use Agent Client Collector to discover cloud VMs? Absolutely, and that is a great use case for Agent Client Collector, right? So, when you think about, you may be dealing with microsegmentation inside the cloud, right? And being able to run horizontal discovery after, for IaaS infrastructure after cloud API discovery may not be ideal because you don't want to, put, a mid server in all of those segments, network segments. So, I think Ryan answered a question that somebody said, what port needs to be open to talk to the mid server, right? So if you have a mid server, let's say, in Azure, AWS, GCP, and you can open an outbound port or, open a firewall rule for that port that the mid server is listening on, that's probably a much better use case to capture that complete IaaS details in the cloud, right? So absolutely, you can use Agent Client Collector in the cloud. We've also heard of other customers using it for domain controllers where, they can't get the appropriate level of permissions, but they still want to capture that data, for that. Appliance
And
information.
Derek,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I think in the meantime, we can launch the final third poll after the
Yeah.
demo. Gabby, maybe you can share the screen so we can launch it.
Yeah, of course.
Amazing.
Yeah, do you want to share? Go ahead and share that. And
Yeah, here we go. So our poll number 3, thank you so much, Derek, for the demo. That was really valuable. And thank you everyone for engaging on the Q&A. So for our poll number 3, we want to know which ACC-V features are you willing to implement after this webinar? So from what we talked about, like the midlist ACC-V, hardware software discovery for SAM use cases, software metering for SaaS applications, file-based discovery, or ML-based service mapping. So please, you see a pop-up of the poll. Feel free to answer the question and take about like 10, 15 seconds to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabby. In the meantime, I feel like Derek can keep going with answering the Q&A.
okay. Yeah, so another question here. So I think we answered Varun's question about using ACC for cloud VMs. Awesome use case. Vanille, appliance info is not available, so I'm trying to find here. Not sure about what that question is, but if when you think about an appliance, right? Generally, the vendor, the owner of that appliance, is not going to give you shell level access, and most likely not going to allow you to install an agent. So I don't think, and if I understand this question correctly, ACC is probably not the best solution for appliances, right? Doc link related to installation and troubleshooting. So what I just wanted, and I don't think we talked about this, but we do have something called out on the ServiceNow community. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. And on the ServiceNow community, we have something called I believe it is called the ITOM Visibility Resource Library. I'll just read ITOM Visibility Resource Library. And we should probably include a slide on all of our decks for this. But where is it? Maybe I spelled it wrong. ITOM. Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah. So on the ITOM Cloud resource, you can find a bunch of great information on, all of the ITOM visibility solutions, cloud discovery, Kubernetes discovery, ACC, service mapping. So we'll make sure that we have some installation and troubleshooting KBs. We'll make sure that we get these updated on the resource library so you can easily access that. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in the chat just to make sure that, John, you're amazing. You already did. Awesome. Thank you. We have non-supported Unix variants in our infrastructures. How will we go about monitoring these server OS platforms for health and performance and availability? So, yeah, I had mentioned that ACC requires some libraries that aren't supported in the Unix variants. So, you would want to look at, the Zabbix, the Nagios and other solutions to help to monitor those type of solutions. And from a visibility perspective, we do have out-of-the-box patterns that you can execute via agentless discovery to discover those Unix variants, right? So, I believe we have patterns for AIX, HPUX, Solaris. So I think that would, and then suggest best automation process for horizontal discovery, currently any new use case. Can you suggest best automation process for horizontal discovery current? I'm not sure I really understand this question, but let me just try to answer it. And this is kind of future roadmap, but we are looking at, we have a current spoke for like Infoblox IPAM solution. So we are investigating being able to, since we have the ability to ingest information from info blocks, being able to, help build discovery schedules from the data ingested from um, uh, IPAM solutions, right? Info blocks, there's some other IPAM solutions that we're also targeting there as well. Okay, answer that. Does ACC support running on a 9x86 architecture? Anybody know that question? I'm not positive. Doug, Richard, Ryan. Let me go back into installed software or system applications and see if I can glean that.
I don't think it's listed as a supported. Any non-x86 is listed supported, but I mean, we list all the supported operating systems on our doc sites. I mean, I should say, well, the Mac doesn't use x86, so I mean, that's supported, but I think that's the only one.
Yeah, looking, I just opened up the the ACC framework application, and it says supporting operations or operating systems for x86_64 architecture. So it looks like right now only Mac for non-x86 64. Okay, I think please share good resource which can help to implement AWS Cloud Server. Which one? Actually, we are covering cloud discovery best practices, John, in the August.
Yes.
Yeah. So, prior to the August webinar, I would say reference the ITOM resource library, and then please come back in August. We are going to cover that in that session as well. So, Gabby, I think that is all of the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and hand that over to you to wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate everybody for your participation and engagement in the Q&A, and for all of our speakers for answering your questions. So talking about resources, here's a list of really valuable resources that will be also available on the community page, as well as this deck. I know Jan also pasted the links on the chat. So I was seeing that someone couldn't copy the contents from the chat, but you can definitely see the links here and also in the community page later this week. And then yeah, we really appreciate everybody for your commitment and participation in today's session. We just want to let you know that the recording of this session and all of the previous webinars are available by scanning this QR code and clicking the link that we sent on the chat at the beginning of the webinar. We also wanted to showcase Beers with Engineers. This is a YouTube series where engineers grab a beer and dive into technical topics, all while keeping it relaxed and conversational. This is a really good watch if you're interested, and there is a microsite here and the on-demand link for you to access this series. And once again, we really appreciate your participation, and we're looking forward to seeing you in future webinars. Thank you so much, Ryan, Derek, Sachi, Jan, Richard, and Doug, for your presentations and the fantastic work answering the questions. And thank you so much for all of the attendees for joining. We hope you really have a good rest of your day and that you enjoyed this section, and see you next month. Thank you so much.